Hey guys, today I'm sharing some Halloween DIY dupes that are fun, easy, and affordable. Nothing complicated, just simple projects that you can make with Dollar Tree finds or things you already have at home. So grab a coffee, get comfy, or craft along with me, and let's dive in. For the first DIY, my inspo were these skull candle holders I've been seeing online. In fact, Dollar Tree has a version of it also, but it's in the plus section for $7. And I knew we could create something that looks even better for less. And it only took one of these plastic skull bottles and an LED dripping votive candle. But if you can't find the dripping ones, don't worry, we're going to make our own drips, so any votive candle that will fit in the opening will work. With hot glue, you'll start adding the votive, making drip marks from the top down the forehead of the skull. I do the drips from the top of the candle to kind of match up with the drips I'm making on the skull. But also occasionally removing the votive because we don't want to glue the votive to the top because that's how we're going to turn the votive off and on. I'm just trying to make the drips look like they are cohesive. It doesn't have to be perfect, and towards the end, I create hot glue drips separately on both pieces, just making sure not to cover the bottom of the votive so that it will still fit in the top of the skull. Then I take it outside and give it a good coat of flat linen spray paint by Behr. All of the extra supplies for this video I will try and link in the description box if I can find them. Now to make the skull come to life, I mix a little Waverly Brown wax with some water, and I have some wax not diluted so I can go into the crevices and make them stand out. I also have a spray bottle with water ready to go just in case I overdo an area. I can wet it down and wipe it off. At first I was wiping off too much, so I decided to go in and paint the areas I wanted darker and leave it to sit for a minute or so while I worked on another area by giving it a chance to dry. Just painting and wiping and going over the areas I wanted darker. I went over those areas a couple of times until it was the way I wanted. It didn't take long and I really enjoyed the process. And here it is all finished and styled. I'm obsessed with how spooky this one came out. And you'd never guess it started with a plastic Dollar Tree bottle. Can you imagine several of these spread out on a buffet, all lit up and flickering? You could even place some on risers for different levels and extra drama. And the best part? The total cost was only $2.12. DIY inspiration comes from McGee Co's Arachne candle holders. I just think they are so unique, but for $48 and $68, that's a little out of my budget. I knew we could do this with the Dollar Tree spiders they get in every year. So a couple of them and their emergency candles we are ready to craft. You could use any battery operated candles. I just like that these had a lower profile. So the first thing I did was create a pilot hole with my drill in the middle of the back of the spider. The plastic is pretty hard and a utility knife isn't enough to get it started. But once the hole is drilled, it's easy to start cutting away at the plastic with the utility knife and making sure the candle fits as you go so you don't accidentally cut away too much. Just be super careful and go slow. And don't worry about any tears, scratches, or discolorations. It's easily touched up with a little paint or even a Sharpie. And here's how they turned out. I think they are a great alternative to McGee Co's version, a fun, creepy touch to any Halloween decor. You can add them to a windowsill, a bathroom, or anywhere you want to bring in the Halloween spirit. And can you believe it? For only $4.25, we were able to make two. Now my inspiration for this next DIY is sort of from the McGee Co skull planner, but it didn't start out that way. If you watched my last video, you'd know that this was a no DIY, but I really like the McGee Co one better because of the neutral color, and since I already had the candy dish from the Dollar Tree, it was a simple transformation. To start, I took it outside for a quick spray paint with an off-white gloss by Rust-Oleum, and now for the fun part, getting to play with the paint. So I put an off-white, white, and brown to my makeshift palette, and with a wet paper towel, I put it into the paint, mixing to create a muted tone. Then just dabbing a wet paper towel on the candy dish and wiping. When it came to the hands where I couldn't reach, I used a paintbrush and just wiped any drips. I just keep going, lightening or darkening places as needed. I find this technique very therapeutic, and the best part, you can't make a mistake. So when I felt it was done, it was time to add the florals. I picked up these at Dollar Tree. I'm not loving the price these days for the florals and usually skip them, but I thought this bunch was pretty good. Plus it's versatile because I'll be able to use it for a Thanksgiving display, which is why I bent the stems and didn't affix them permanently to the candy dish turned vase. And here's how she turned out. I think it's a great pop of color for my kitchen, and I love the soft tones of the skull now. What do you think? Do you prefer this version or the silver one? For this no DIY, which means no hot glue or paint required, I thought we could easily mimic the McGee Co's bag of resin bones. They're cute, but not for $38. And this is super simple to create with a few supplies I had on hand. All I had to do was pick up a Dollar Tree long jointed skeleton for $1.50. And I had on hand this dough bowl I thrifted, but you could also use one of the Dollar Tree trays. Even a pie plate would work. And some moss, and we're ready to go. Now, disjoining the skeleton was pretty easy, and I found it snapped off better when I used my scissors and kind of twisted it. And once all the bones were apart, it was time to get them in the bowl. And of course, I will use the skull and the torso for another project. And as you can see, it's super easy just to add the moss and arrange the bones, which now doesn't even look like cheap plastic. They actually have a speckled kind of mottled look to them. And here they are, all styled and ready for Halloween. I think it's an easy, no DIY and perfect addition to my small coffee table in the living room. This next DIY was inspired by these gorgeous napkins. I just love the artwork, and when I saw them, I knew I needed to do something with them. And I just realized this too is a no DIY. Super simple. All I did was take a 4x6 frame I had in my stash and cut the part of the napkin image that I wanted. You could do a larger frame and include more of the napkin, but this is what I had, so I went with it. You get 24 napkins in this pack, so there are plenty left over for any holiday get-togethers or more crafting. And just like that, you have a cute piece of art worthy of any Halloween apothecary or display. Next up is the skull from McGee Co. that I just thought was so fun and creepy under a cloche. And with all the different skulls available at Dollar Tree, it was a no-brainer to try this one. And if you don't have a cloche, you can use a cake stand cover or even a glass bowl or a big jar. Putting a skull under glass is just an easy way to elevate any Halloween table or display and add some spookiness. And I decided on this skull, and he looks creepy just like he is, especially under the cloche. But as a crafter, you know I had to see if I could make him look better. And of course, I gave it a coat of spray paint, the same bare one that I used for the skull candle, but this time I just dusted it. I liked the color variations. I also thought about cutting off the bottom of his jaw like the inspiration, but because this piece is plastic, I was worried it wouldn't sit right, so I just left it alone. Now, because the paint is chalk paint and it's very porous, I started out spraying the piece with some water to be safe. I didn't want to go straight in with the wax in case it absorbed too quickly. I also had some watered down brown wax and some non-watered down wax and just painted, wiped, and dabbed until I liked how it looked, paying close attention to the crevices, especially the eyes, nose, and teeth. When I was almost done, I would wait a minute or two before wiping to let the darkened areas dry a little. And if you're still hanging out with me, then I know you must love Halloween and DIYs as much as I do. So I thought it would be fun to give away a few of my projects, including some from my last 2 Halloween videos. Just make sure you're subscribed and let me know in the comments which one you'd want. If it's available, it might just end up on your doorstep. And here it is, all finished under glass. I love how creepy this one turned out. Putting a skull under a cloche just instantly makes it feel high-end and dramatic. You could do a single one as a centerpiece or group a few together at varying heights for a really striking Halloween display. And this might sound weird, but he kind of resembles one of my ex-boyfriends. Next DIY came from me playing around with some images in Canva. I created from one ghost image a family portrait, so I thought, why not try and paint one? Keep in mind, I'm no artist, but I like the idea. And being a crafter, I feel like there's a no fear zone, where you can always turn it into something else if it doesn't work out. Plus, I had this frame from Dollar Tree in my stash, and it has the haunted house vibes. So I began to pencil on 3 ghost shapes. And with some white paint, I just made sure to keep each ghost their own entity, with them being together. So separate but together, which should make sense with the visual. And I'm sorry about the camera angle. I must have bumped it, but I wanted to keep the footage in here so you could see what I was doing. And I ended up doing about 3 coats of paint, letting each one dry in between. And I think you can see here how the ghosts are together but separate. And now that everything was dry, it was time to add the eyes. And with the top of my paintbrush, I dip it into the black paint, and then gently touching the image, it creates the perfect round shape for the eye. And I keep doing this process until the entire family has eyes. And here it is. While it's no Van Gogh, I think it's a whimsical craft perfect for the mantle where a family portrait should go. What do you think? And this next no DIY fits right into the fun, whimsical Halloween vibe. I decided to take this window cling that Dollar Tree has out right now and add it to the glass frame I had in my stash. You could take out the clips that hold the glass in place and glue the glass, but they didn't bother me, so I left it. And this way I can use the frame for another project. And with the Dollar Tree easel, this friendly skeleton has his place. I think this would be great in a kid's room or a bathroom. It's just an easy, no DIY. For this DIY, I wanted to use more of those gorgeous Halloween napkins I showed you earlier. This one is super easy, but it turns out so good. I actually saw the idea on Crafts by Caitlin last year. Her channel will be linked below if you want to check it out. So I started cutting out the part of the napkin that I wanted to apply to the candle. And you can do this with a real candle or one of the waxy LED candles like I'm using here. It has to have wax so that it can melt the image to the candle. I then peel the second ply away from the candle. With my Cricut iron, I iron the napkin on. You could use a craft iron or a regular iron, and I'll have some options linked below. You can also do the entire napkin, but I wanted this one to just have this specific design. From the bottom and top, I try to cut it as close as possible, and then I iron the edges to give it a finished look. Oh, and I think Caitlin used wax paper to wrap around the candle and napkin. Not sure if it helps protect your iron, but I just wiped mine off on the drop cloth while it was still hot and it was fine. And here it is, styled on a pillar candle holder. I love these because they're so versatile. You can customize them for parties, weddings, showers, holidays, or even just to match your everyday decor. They work in any room and they make a nice gift. And if you like these DIYs, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.